Hello everybody, I am not dead. I'm afraid I've just been very busy. I desperately hope I can get back to making videos as normal soon, but this one couldn't wait. I thought I would quickly jump on to tell you a crazy story. It really was too wild for me to wait till I had any spare time, so I'll make it as short as I can. I know people clickbait and say, you gotta stay till the end, you won't believe it, but you gotta stay till the end, you won't believe it. I'll be as concise as I can. I've got to go back a little while to twitter.com. Remember that place? What a nice place it used to be. No, it was never nice, but it was not the hellscape it is today. And several years ago, it all started with a thread about a cardiac surgeon. This is not the main story, but there was a cardiac surgeon who claimed that he was homeless, and then it was a kind of rags to riches story and became a surgeon. What a great story. And if people catch a break, then, you know, they can do anything. And it was picked up by the media. And he was an anonymous account, but he fooled even every doctors online, and everyone was saying, wow, what a great story. But my cardiac spidey sense was tingling. You know, he messed with the wrong specialty. You come to my house and you start talking smack, telling lies, I'm going to find you out. And sure enough, there was enough for me to post a thread investigating his claims using sort of reverse image search, just saying this guy's a big fat phony and you've all been taken in. And sure enough, the next day, poof, his account was gone. So I developed this reputation because he was quite a big name in the UK medical Twitterati at that point, and kind of being this sleuth. And I used to like kind of exposing people who would, you know, make up stuff or tell lies. And I guess it all culminated in 2023 when I did a long thread on a character called Professor N. John Cam. Now, he was an interesting guy. I mean, you can see already he's an interesting looking dude. But my friends, other cardiologists, would often like send his tweets to each other saying, look at this, what this guy has said now. And he'd come up with some wild nonsense. But I felt like he was a doctor, like he would post cases and he'd post medical stuff. But he just was kind of very outspoken, kind of weird, unhinged guy. And the cases he would post were crazy. So he attracted a lot of attention, very interesting cases. I realized that he'd stolen a lot of these. They're not from his work. Initially, I was taken in as well. I thought, wow, this guy's got a really interesting career. And he seemed to have a lot of credentials. But then I realized he's kind of lifting them from other places, like from journals or wherever. And to be honest, I don't like that. But it's very common on Twitter and Instagram, just these rip-off accounts, these compiling, curating accounts where they take stuff without credit. So I didn't think that was a big deal. But he attracted a big audience. And then he started getting quite political. And I don't know if you look at that photo and think this is an Indian guy. I think a lot of people just thought he was an indeterminate kind of ethnicity with a name like John Cam. But to me, I realized he's talking about Indian politics pretty quickly. He would be very anti-Islamic, very openly Islamophobic. He would be extremely misogynistic. Like if a woman doctor said, you know, I'm so proud to have made it in a male-dominated field as a consultant surgeon, he would say something like, women have never been discriminated against, it's a fiction. He was very anti-trans, and he would retweet a lot of the kind of anti-trans accounts, which we all know are very common on Twitter. Then he was a big Modi supporter, but also from the kind of far right fringes of the BJP, the Indian ruling party, where he would be extremely anti-Muslim and pro-Hindu. But he was also very racist against black people. So all these, you know, it was like, whoa, this is a lot going on here. But he developed a big following, as a lot of those accounts tend to do. And of course, the reddest of red flags that I should have realized straight away, huge Elon Musk fan. And here, where he's retweeting Elon Musk, I've just realized now, looking back at this, that he's praising underneath Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who is Trump's pick as head of the NIH and is also a lunatic. So you can see how a lot of these thought processes coalesce. I figured there was something wrong, but there was two things that I think made me look into this. You know, initially I thought it was kind of funny that this kind of unhinged nut is saying all this crazy stuff. But then I saw people responding to him saying, you know, this is why I don't have faith in doctors. This is what, you know, I can't believe Indians are being racist against black people. And I thought, this is kind of really not okay. So I didn't want it to continue. But the worst thing was Professor John Cam is a real cardiologist. In fact, he's from St. George's, where I trained. And this fake John Cam said he trained at St. George's. So I thought, hang on, this is getting a bit too personal. Then I saw people criticizing the real John Cam, because they'd look up this guy's horrible comments and then they'd search John Cam cardiologist and they'd find Professor John Cam in the UK and they'd start insulting him and saying what a, this old white guys, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, 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 this is not the guy saying this stuff. Professor John Cam is a very well-known name in cardiology. He's a legend. He's someone I knew from medical school days, and I now am friends with his son. And thankfully, the Professor Cam, the real one, is not active on Twitter, but his son was, and I didn't want him seeing all this horrible stuff where people are mistaking this guy for his dad. So that's when I started to look into things, offensive stuff I'm not going to repeat. But then I went to his website, started looking at his bio. It was full of typos, full of very suspicious stuff like journal articles that didn't exist and all these kinds of things. And he was saying he was at George's. Now, it was before my time, but surely somebody would have known him. And then I found these classic Photoshops of him with one of the chief ministers in India who retweeted him, by the way. And that's why I think he developed a big following, because this guy is one of the stars of the BJP. And again, quite a hardliner that this guy's aligned himself to. But this Photoshop with another politician is beautiful. Look how his knee just vanishes next to the table. It's truly amateur hour here.
He frequently claimed to be developing important hospitals, and all the images he shared were just clearly CG mock-ups that he'd stolen from residential complexes and so on.
I started looking a bit wider, and I found several dissolved companies under UK's Companies House, which looks at all the corporations in the UK. 2 dissolved companies with him as director were named Brownvald. Now, Eugene Brownvald is another legendary cardiologist, kind of one of the father figures of modern cardiology. So this guy, it seems, has just stolen the identities, stolen the names of 2 legendary figures in cardiology, and is doing all kinds of nonsense. So his real name is Narendra Vikramaditya Yadav. I'm coming to the big reveal, don't worry. And I then looked him up in the Indian press, and it gets better. Not only was he suspended for several years in India for negligence, but he was also arrested, including a charge of kidnapping. So I posted this. Obviously, I was blocked instantly. It kind of started blowing up in Indian Twitter, and I got so many, quote tweets, and I realized that this guy had become quite a well-known BJP propagandist, and a lot of these people saying, aha, he's exposed as a fraud, he always seemed very suspicious. Then I started getting emails. Now, this is about the same time I quit Twitter, so I didn't keep updating the thread, unfortunately. But I've got about a dozen emails from different people saying they've worked with him. One here, saying that he was expelled because of forgery, physical assault, and identity theft. And then there's more details about the arrest back in 2014. And that brings us to the present day, because today, another cardiology friend who remembered that tweet, messaged me saying, have you seen the Times of India? And I said, what's going on? I went there. So this Professor N. John Cam, that's not his real name, is now the subject of a huge manhunt in Madhya Pradesh in India. Now, to the uninitiated, how can I explain Madhya Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh, where that chief minister is from? They're kind of like Florida and Texas, in that they're full of crazy people, crazy religious people, but just also crazy people. So a lot of the mad stories you hear from India, that they come from these places. And he is now on the run for his role in the death of 7 people. I guess the charge will be manslaughter. So the accusation is that he was still impersonating Professor John Cam, got a job in a hospital in India, and he has killed, allegedly, at least 7 people through negligence. And based on what the hospital is saying online, these were very straightforward procedures. So I don't understand how you can kill 7 people. It was only within a few months period. And then he's gone on the run. So this is breaking news. This is today. The police are going, as of 7th April, to go and investigate further and look for this guy. But what a crazy story, which all started, I can't see anybody questioning his veracity before that thread. So it all started with this thread on Twitter that I posted, and is now a fugitive at least 7 people. The hospital alleged maybe the number may be much higher. So I guess this just kind of goes to show that you can post racist, sexist, Islamophobic, transphobic, homophobic stuff on twitter.com, and that's absolutely fine. But if you mess with the myocardium, if you come into the cardiac house and start talking shit about the heart, you will have to deal with me. I will actually, the way I phrased that makes it sound like I'm fine with all the offensive stuff. Bad phrasing, but okay, well, I guess this is just my new identity now. I'll become a right-wing influencer. I'll become a BJP Bhakt Sanghi, like, I don't want to use his fake name. I'll use Narendra Yadav, and that's my new identity now. I've bought my son a ukulele, so if I do need to make an apology video, if I get cancelled for all my sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, and Islamophobia, then so be it. I'm ready to go with my ukulele. But anyway, that's, as you can tell, this was an unplanned video. I just really wanted to share this crazy story. I thought you'd find it amusing. If you did, then shame on you, because some people died. So that's on you. That's not my doing. But yes, it is objectively quite a crazy story.
And I have quite the update for you, because as of today, April the 8th, Narendra Yadav, who is not John Cam, he's a very naughty boy, has been arrested by the police in India for causing the death of 7 people, but also it has now emerged that the allegation is that he has faked his entire medical qualification, not just his credentials about doing some time at St. George's Hospital, but he may not even be a real doctor at all. So this story gets wilder and wilder. My wife and kids are in India right now. They tell me it's all over the news. It's even made it to the BBC main page over here. The Times of India have dubbed him Dr. Death. And if he truly has faked being a doctor from the beginning, then this must go down as one of the most shocking and heinous examples of a criminal inflicting harm, causing death by faking being a doctor. So I will certainly follow the case and see what happens. But I thought I would close because today I've received an email from one of the people who emailed me right at the beginning. And in fact, the email that I showed in the video earlier, who's asked for his identity to remain confidential throughout, but he's a very senior cardiologist in India. And clearly there's some personal beef here because he's told me stuff, really shocking stuff, which now putting into context of this guy maybe being a fake doctor is more believable, but also even more terrifying. And I hadn't published some of these things because I was worried about legal ramifications, but I guess the guy's in custody now, so probably don't have much to worry about. But this chap who emailed me, who's a real doctor, he closed his email by saying, and now his game is over. And that's probably a fitting place to stop.